Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today, and the topic is 5 more things that need to be fixed in F1 2020, the game, or specifically My Team Career Mode. We did a video just like this over a week ago with the first 6 things that I feel that need to be fixed in F1 2020. Now, some of these are coming from the comment section of that video, so it's actually really, some of these are what you guys think need to be fixed in F1 2021. These are actually the suggestion. It had like over 1k thumbs up on the last video, so quite obviously a lot of you guys were getting behind this one idea, so you'll kind of see that later on in the video. But 5 more things that need to be fixed. Hopefully, you know, it can be looked into. Some of these are a little bit bigger than others in terms of the issue at hand, and so some of them I can admit are more kind of fundamental things with the game, which I just don't gel with and I don't agree with, but they might not be able to address it fully. But a lot of these I think they can actually address with little patches, because they have done that in the past. So let's get into it then. 5 more things that need to be fixed, starting off with number 1. Now, with this first one, I didn't actually know that this was potentially an issue because I had not got to this part of the My Team Career Mode, essentially. But driver transfers and their frequency and the way they occur need to be looked into, I feel, because after my transition from Season 1 to Season 2, you guys started tweeting me your own experience of the driver transfers, and it's very apparent that there's unfortunately a bit of a domino effect system with the driver transfers, which means sometimes, or actually a lot of the time, depending on the driver you sign, you can get very bland transfers and just not very exciting career mode saves in My Team because you've not created a domino effect. Now, what I mean by that is I signed Carlos Sainz, a midfield driver, one of the top midfield drivers, and so that created a ripple effect. We had Kimi Räikkönen retiring after that season. That's another thing that might change who transfers out for your career mode. I've seen a few of you guys tell me that in your career mode saves, Sebastian Vettel was retired quite early on, so that's created a bit of a ripple effect. But for me, Räikkönen departing, and for me to steal Sainz away from McLaren, which was one of the top 3 teams at the end of my Season 1, that created a domino effect where a load of transfers happened. I had Ricciardo going back to Red Bull, of course. We had some really exciting ones swapping around, you know, Ocon to McLaren to replace an outgoing Sainz, Russell over to Alfa Romeo. Some really awesome transfers. In total, I had 10 full transfers. Perez to Alpha Tauri, yeah, the list goes on. 10 transfers in total, but some of you have literally only had 1 or 2 because you've opted to sign maybe a lower driver. You know, maybe you didn't have the budget for it, or maybe you just wanted to go a little bit more kind of tame, wanted to train up a lower rated driver, so you signed another F2 driver in Season 2, or you signed, you know, George Russell, Latifi, one of the lower guys on the grid for Season 2, and that did not create a domino effect because obviously the top AI drivers, you know, the top teams in the midfield teams, they're not going to bother trying to fill a slot in a team that's lower than them on the R&D chart and on pace and in the game in general, so you don't get that domino effect. So when I uploaded my transition to Season 2 and you guys tweeted me that, it kind of exposed a flaw in the driver transfer system essentially in the game, that there's too much reliance on just the space opening up, which makes sense. It is, you know, realistic in a way. Obviously in real life, you know, spaces have to open up, you know, contracts have to finish for you to actually move about, but it is a video game and it's a bit of a shame that everyone is, well, a load of people can get such bland transfers, and then you have like one and off chance that if you sign the right person, it creates a massive ripple effect. Now, obviously, you might disagree with me, you might want it to be very realistic, but for me personally, I'd rather see a few more transfers than we might see in real life, because real life can be quite bland, really, in the F1 driver market. And actually, this is something that peeved me off last year on F1 2019. The frequency of driver transfers was perfect. It was fine at the start of the game, and then they brought in a patch about, you know, I would say a month or 2 after the game was out, and it decreased the frequency of transfers, and from then on, like, I got 5 or 6 transfers in my first 2 seasons of vanilla career mode, I remember, on F1 2019, and then after that, I hardly got like 1 or 2, that was it, and it just wasn't any more fun in terms of after you get down to like Season 5 and 6, you need like a minimum of 4 transfers or something to keep the grid fresh and keep things alive and just on their toes. So that's something that hopefully they don't do in this game. They don't reduce the frequencies, and in fact, they maybe look into tweaking how the domino effect works, because some of you guys can really get kind of screwed over with, you know, some pretty bland driver transfer developments because you've not chosen a top driver to sign in Seasons 2 or 3. That was quite a lengthy rant on point number 1, but you can tell I'm quite passionate about that one. But we're going to move on then. Number 2, safety car frequency. Now, it's not as bad as in F1 2019. If you guys all remember, the safety car pretty much didn't exist in the game in F1 2019 at the launch, and they had to patch it. I think it was several months after they patched it properly, and then it actually started to crop up again. This year, it's not as bad, but I still feel like the frequency is a little bit, just a tinge on the lower side. Like, I've had a few big moments in career mode where there really should be a safety car, where there's a car parked up in a bad spot, there's a big crash, and it's only been a virtual safety car, or not even anything, just the yellow flags, double yellows. Taking point, episode number 2 or 3, was it, of my team career mode, Bahrain, massive crash between Hamilton and Albon, and that should have been a safety car. That would have been a safety car in real life, and it was only a virtual one. I will admit, though, they have done a decent job at times when it is accurate, a la kind of at Hanoi in Season 2 when Sainz crashed, and that was a full safety car, so fair play. That's why I'm saying it just needs a little tweak in my opinion. Number 3, now this was the big point brought up by you guys in the comments below of the last video we did, the very first one of these, and this was Jeff's strategy calls mid-race, what he suggests to you. Now the top comment on the last video is, as I quote, Jeff will suggest a new strategy and the choices will be either the same thing I planned originally or 0 pit stops. That got 1.4k upvotes on the last one of these, so it was obviously a big relatability for you guys, so that's why I wanted to include it in this list here. And I've seen it plenty on my subreddit as well. Like, Jeff has the frequency now to suggest a lot more than he ever used to. Strategies where it's either 0 stops, even though you've definitely got to make one more stop, or the same one. And I've had that as well. I've had it where there's maybe rain coming on the way, and he suggested the same dry strategy, even though there's literally rain falling. Just wait like a lap, and then you're going to suggest me to go onto Inters, so don't do that. And then I've seen on my subreddit just posts of, it's not even a wet race, it's just a fully dry race, and he's just recommending, for no apparent reason, the same strategy. It's not useful information. You know, there could be better info you're giving us, essentially, but especially in those kind of crossover periods for a wet race, or those moments where you've definitely got to make a stop and you're suggesting a 0 stop, which obviously is not great. Kind of almost maybe suggests there's going to be a little bit of a bug, and there was obviously a bug at the very start of this game where I think it was in a 50% race or 25. If you like did a soft to medium strategy, it gave you a disqualification. I think they patched that out now, but you know, a few iffy things are occurring with the strategies, but this is still something that's in the game, is Jeff's just suggesting some very stupid strategies that just don't need to be said, essentially, and are basically useless to everyone. Number 4, now this was again, like point number 1, only apparent to me after getting into the depths of my team career. Like, I could not foresee this issue at the start of the game, but now having played a good number of races in my team into Season 2, now I can see this is a bit of an issue. So at the start of the game, durability, we realized it's on the R&D chart now. Durability, you can see the durability from team to team. So before, we couldn't. We could only see the performance updates, you know, engine, chassis, and aero, and that was nice, but it was kind of a bit odd not to see how other teams were durability-wise. It kind of gave a bit of mystery, I'll admit, but at the same time, it was annoying to maybe not see, you know, especially in normal career mode, when you moved Formula 1 teams, it was annoying to see, not be able to see how their durability stacked up, and if you would have to invest in that yourself. But now that it is included, the thing is, it's nice to see the bars on the right hand side, to see actually where you stack up reliability wise against the other teams. What's not great though is that it also translates onto the actual R&D chart, like the actual graph itself, and that is just not useful whatsoever, because it really clouds the judgment of the player and just everyone in terms of where they are. Like, if, you know, let's say Alfa Romeo, they have amazing durability, the best on the grid, that's going to actually jump them up the table, or the chart rather, on the graph, and it's going to deceivingly make it look like they're better than they actually are. And I feel like that's the same thing that's happening right now in my team career mode. I feel like my team is actually a lot closer to Mercedes now, as we witnessed at Zandvoort, a lot closer on the R&D chart than it actually looks, because I'm one of the lowest teams on R&D and Mercedes are one of the highest. And like I said, it's useful to see it compared to other teams on the right hand side, on the little index kind of graph, the little lines. But on the actual graph itself, it's really not useful, because it just makes everything wrong, essentially. You can't get a clear picture of where teams are. So I've had midfield battles, you know, I've been looking at McLaren, Racing Point, AlphaTauri, and, you know, I'm seeing these battles, and then we get to the track, and it's nothing like it, because the durability part of the R&D graph is basically making it look a lot different than it maybe should be. Now, over the years in F1 games with the R&D chart, it's never been really that, you know, accurate. On paper, it's very different to on track with the AI setting the lap times there, and then you've got sim times in quali and whatnot, and tire wear and such. But this is even worse now. It's making it even worse to look at. Like, it's making the graph even more useless, basically, because the durability is jumping teams up or pushing them down, in my case, for my team. So what would be useful is to just remove the durability part, add it into the graph, but just keep the actual ladder on the right, so we can see where we stack up, but it doesn't actually feed into the graph. The graph is just pure performance on the engine, chassis, and aero, as it should be, because durability, yeah, it's sort of performance in terms of, obviously, it's wearing out, but it doesn't tell you whatsoever how quick a car is. The car can be, you know, on 60% worn and still be pretty rapid. Obviously, yeah, I know the engine wears out a little bit, so it's a little bit slower in a straight line, but theoretically, it's not going to matter that much compared to chassis, aero, and engine. So that's why I think they need to make that tweak of just removing the data out of that graph. And finally, number 5. Now, it was a really great feature they added in of a custom calendar. We can go for 22 races, 16, or 10 in my team and normal career mode, and you can swap it in between seasons. So one season, if you don't feel like doing all 22 races, you can just do 10 races. Great feature, but the annoying thing is you can't change the order of the calendar, essentially, in terms of a circuit that comes after another in the real life, what would have been the theoretical 2020 calendar, cannot be swapped round. What I mean by that is I can't start the calendar in Austria and then go to the Spanish Grand Prix next time. Like, let's say if I wanted to make a semi-realistic 2020 calendar career where we start in Austria and then we can't do 2 times Austria, unfortunately, which would be cool, but we can't. Fair play. I can understand why you can't do that. But one Austria, go then to Hungary, and then you can go to Silverstone, and then you can't go to Spain because Spain is before Austria, and the way the game does it is in the custom calendar, if you choose 10 races, effectively the game, and it actually tells you this, the game pretends like we've actually just removed those tracks out of a normal calendar, and there's a massive just time leap. If you go into normal career mode, or if you go into my team even and play a 16 or 10 race calendar, you'll see the game plays out like normal. What's just happening is they're just removing these races you've removed, but that's why you can't swap them around, because the game is programmed in a certain way to have Australia, Bahrain, Hanoi, and then what it does when you do the custom one, it says, okay, you don't have Australia, what's the next one along in our sequence of coding? Oh, it's Bahrain, so we'll go to Bahrain. You're going to miss out Hanoi, you're going to miss out, you know, Monaco, whatever, all the tracks up until Austria. So in the game, the programming goes, right, we're at Bahrain, and then there's a massive calendar gap, like the in-game calendar time. There's a massive gap from March or, you know, April or whatever, all the way to like June, July in the in-game calendar, and that's when we're getting to the second round of the season, effectively. But in the game, it's still obviously relying on the fact of counting down or counting up to Austria, essentially, and that's why you can't have Austria before Bahrain, which is a real shame. You know, it's if you're going to sell a custom calendar, just do it right. You know, just allow us to have that. I know it's obviously going to be more coding, and there's a reason why, like I just said, the explanation I gave, obviously they've had to do some intricate coding to make that all work. So that's going to wrap up my 5th point, and that's 5 more things I think need to be fixed in F1 2020 and my team and career mode. Obviously, like I said, a few of these are more fundamental things, like the calendar one. I will admit it's an annoyance, but it's something I already know they can't fix. It's something that they're going to have to, like, you know, look for the next game, unfortunately, but it's something that needs to be brought up early on, because it's just a glaring thing that sort of like, you know, that would be a nice thing to actually do. And then the biggest thing for me was the one I'm most passionate about was that first point with the driver transfers, obviously. But let me know what you guys make of these of these other things, and let me know in the comments below if there are other things like glaring bugs or issues with the game that's kind of ruining your enjoyment right now that you think need to be addressed in patches. I know you guys are throwing around ideas of other things you want to see in the game, but at this point in the game cycle with these kind of videos, I'm not looking at game ideas, I'm just looking at things that need to be tweaked. So not kind of going off things that are missing in the game, just things that are there and that need to be tweaked and changed to be made better. Basically things that could actually maybe get patched if they wanted to and took the effort to look into them, essentially. So let me know those good things in the comments below. If you are new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.